So my name is Connor. I am 30 years old, and I was first diagnosed with depression when I was about 22, 23, I think.
Hi, my name is Chantal Serrano. I am 21 years old and I first suspected having depression when I was around 12 years old. I didn't get officially diagnosed until this year, actually, 2021, in March.
Hi, my name is Celeste. I'm 21 and I was first diagnosed 6 months ago.
My name is Kimberly Haley. I'm 24 years old and I was first diagnosed with a mental illness when I was 14 years old. I am diagnosed with depression, general anxiety, and bulimia nervosa.
I had a friend who kind of just dumped a cat on me. Her name was Lily, and she was a very weird cat, kind of almost like a dog. And I grew really attached to her. And despite the struggling that I was going through, and I was also doing therapy at this time. Um, I would come home and there she was, and it was great. Great to see her. She was always happy to see me. Would curl up with me at night, stuff like that. And then, unfortunately, one day, she was killed by one of my mom's dogs, and I just cracked. And it seems really silly to say that because it's like dude, it's just a cat. But that's kind of the defining moment of how mentally ill I how depressed I was. That I did get so attached to a cat. However, I was still content. She was an awesome freaking cat. So at that point, that's where I was super, super low.
I kind of had a realization last March 2020 that I had a mental breakdown, essentially, and I realized I kind of needed help and that I wasn't happy and I hadn't been happy for a long time, and I kind of lived in denial of that for a long time.
I don't think there was like an exact moment when I realized I was mentally ill and needed help. I think it was pretty obvious from early on, and the older I got, probably around 12, it was just undeniable. It was a fact of life.
The moment that really made me realize that I was mentally ill was probably when I was about 13 years old, and I began self-harming via cutting myself on various parts of my body. That's really when I personally knew that it was beyond just being sad. But I didn't really know that I needed help for it, or I didn't really want the help for it, so that took a little bit of extra time.
As far as speed bumps go, yeah, there's been a few for sure. One where I still, after going on the first medication, I still was kind of, struggling with it. And then it's, being told, well, sometimes you got to find the right one. And these medications already can take a few months to actually start taking an effect. So, that's kind of a tricky one. You don't really want to hear, oh, well, if this one doesn't work, then we can try this one. And then if that one doesn't really work, then we can try this one. And I mean, there's a lot of antidepressants, anti-anxiety, type medication out there. Recently, I would say the biggest thing, the biggest speed bumps were, my dad being diagnosed with cancer at the end of 17, beginning of 18, and then him passing a year later, and then I myself getting diagnosed with cancer a year later. And then, and there's also just been, my own personal struggles. As I tell people, it's this is going to make me, expose me as a total nerd, but, with Lord of the Rings and, Schmeagol slash Gollum, in the second movie, there's a scene where he's, talking with himself with Gollum, and that's where they actually break the whole 180 line rule, to make it look like a direct mirror, and and it's just this whole internal dialogue of like, you suck, you're never going to amount to anything, you're ugly, she's never going to be interested in you, Why even bother trying, type of thing like that. So that's, and that's something that I still continue with, struggling with this day.
So far, I'd say the last like 9 years have been the speed bump because I haven't been getting help and I've been denying that I need help. But since I've, life happens and you don't want to admit it to yourself, and it happens. So
yeah, every once in a while, I tend to be pretty self-destructive, so a lot of times when things are starting to go downhill or when things that are out of my control start to go wrong, I kind of like to accelerate the process, and I put myself in situations that make it worse. So every time I start drinking again, that's a speed bump. Every time I get contacted by people from my old life, that's a speed bump. But every single time it gets a little bit better ever since I've started treatment. And it takes a shorter time for me to recover, and every destructive episode is less destructive than the last. So very proud of myself for that.
Speed bumps are definitely something that I deal with, especially for my eating disorder. I don't consider myself to be recovered from bulimia, but I also don't consider myself to be actively bulimic either. I still get disordered thoughts and still occasionally engage in disordered eating, but actual incidents in which my symptoms of bulimia are very present are few and far between. So I kind of consider myself in a place of semi-recovery, which means that I'm always kind of hitting speed bumps, but I'm also good at actively coping with them and moving past them, and I am now at a point where these speed bumps become less and less frequent and they're less and less disruptive.
It's always a fun question to ask a person who deals with depression is like, well, what are you happy for? What do you like, or something like that? And you're just kind of like the wrong person to ask. I would have to say the first one would be my dog Gracie. She is a dog that my dad actually ended up rescuing. I think it was either a year before or actually right before he got cancer. I can't remember. But yeah, he ended up bringing her home, and in my parents' house, that was always a point of contention because my mom always brought animals home, all the time. And then now my dad did it, so we gave him so much crap for it, and he sat there and said, "Oh no, this is just to rehome her," and and something like that. But that did not happen, and rightfully so, because I love that stupid dog. She's a giant pain in my ass, but I really do love her. It's the great thing about dogs is like, it's almost like there is no bad day even for her, because she came from a bad situation of being locked in a crate outside most of her time, and and anytime she saw my dad going by, she was there wagging her tail and everything like that. So it's something I'm envious of. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. Second thing would be my two friends, Philip and Jacob. Met these two guys at our first job at Magic Mountain. Who would have thought that was just supposed to be a summer job that turned into a not just a summer job of almost 3 years. But those are friendships that have just continued. I thought I was gonna stay friends with the small group of guys I had in high school, but people grow up and they change and stuff, and they've helped me get through a whole bunch of stuff, and vice versa. And then I guess the third thing would be is at the end of it, I am still here. sometimes I joke, and I'm just like, days going bad, or just a lot of lunacy going on in the world, as this last year has been. I sometimes joke, I'm so glad I did chemo. But it really is, because I am still here. I am still kicking it.
I met a really cool guy this year. His name is Alec, and really grateful that I met him. He's made me really happy. I'm grateful for how lucky I am that I'm able to go to school. And since the pandemic started, I haven't been working, which is cool. I've been able to really focus on my studies and focus on my major and participate in my education, join clubs, start clubs, have an internship. It's just been really fun, and I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do this before. I feel like I would have been really overwhelmed, and I'm really happy I'm able to take on new responsibilities and new challenges.
I am so grateful for my best friend in the whole wide world, Jordan. I'm really grateful for my family, and honestly at this point I'm really grateful for life. I'm grateful for my own life. There were so many times where I just didn't think I was going to make it, or I didn't see myself being here into the next year, and I'm finally in a place in my life currently where I'm excited for 5 years down the line. And every day honestly just feels like such a blessing. Like every day that I get to be alive feels like such a blessing. So I'm very grateful for life.
My very supportive and understanding family when it comes to mental health. If it wasn't for my mom recognizing and understanding the importance of mental health and taking care of mental illness, I don't know how much longer it would have taken me to begin recognizing and resolving some of my issues and begin treating my illnesses. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for my education and for my persistent curiosity that keeps me moving forward, even when I don't feel like moving forward. And I am very grateful for the amount of love that I have in my life from a lot of my friends and family. They make my life worth it.